Commander Kim rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the tactical display. The red dots representing Varkan Dominion warships had grown more numerous with each passing day. 15 systems lost in 6 months, billions dead or displaced. The stellar Confederation, once proud and sprawling across this sector of the galaxy, now reduced to a single fortified station orbiting the gas giant Helios. "Sir, the shield projectors on the eastern quadrant are showing signs of strain," reported Officer June, his voice steady despite the dire news. "Engineering estimates complete failure within 6 days if the bombardment continues at current levels." Kim nodded silently. 6 days. Not even a week to evacuate the millions of refugees packed into every available space on Sanctuary Station. The vast habitat rings meant to house a comfortable population of 300,000, now strained under the weight of over 5 million desperate survivors. "Begin priority evacuation protocols," Kim ordered, his voice hollow. "Families with children first. Use every transport we have left." "Sir," Officer June hesitated, "we only have transport capacity for perhaps 800,000 people. Even if we pack them in dangerously tight." The unspoken truth hung heavy in the command center. Most would be left behind when the shields failed and the Varkan troops boarded the station. The aliens took no prisoners, at least none that were ever seen again. "The Varkan don't negotiate, they don't show mercy, and they don't stop," Kim muttered, repeating the grim mantra that had spread through Confederation space as world after world fell. The Varkan warships were technological marvels, hulking black vessels covered with a living metal that could repair damage during battle. Their soldiers were equally terrifying, modified beings that felt no pain, required no rest, and fought with mechanical precision. Confederation forces had yet to win a single major engagement against them. Kim walked to the viewport and gazed at the swirling orange and red clouds of Helios. He had joined the Confederation Defense Force 30 years ago with dreams of protecting civilization and exploring the stars. Now he would be remembered, if at all, as the commander who presided over its final collapse. "Sir," called out the sensor officer suddenly. Multiple warp signatures detected at the system edge. Kim felt his stomach sink. "Varkan reinforcements?" "No, sir," the officer replied, confusion evident in her tone. "The signatures are unusual. Smaller vessels, configuration unknown. They don't match any Confederation or Varkan design in our database." A flicker of hope, dangerous and unwelcome, sparked in Kim's chest. "Defensive positions. Bring all remaining weapons online." The command center fell silent as the unknown ships approached. They moved with surprising speed, sleek, angular vessels that seemed almost primitive compared to the organic curves of Varkan technology. "They're hailing us, sir," said the communications officer. "On screen," Kim ordered, bracing himself. The display flickered to life, showing the bridge of an unfamiliar vessel. A woman in a dark uniform stood center frame. She appeared entirely human, with short black hair and eyes that conveyed both authority and determination. "This is Captain Park of the Earth Defense Force," she announced without preamble. "We received your distress signal." Kim blinked in surprise. Earth, the human homeworld, was known to the Confederation only through old stellar charts and fragmentary records. Their system lay beyond the far reaches of Confederation space, isolated and largely forgotten. "This is Commander Kim of the Stellar Confederation," he replied, trying to mask his shock. "I wasn't aware our distress calls reached that far." Captain Park's expression remained serious. "We've been monitoring the Varkan advance for months. Our long-range scouts have observed their tactics and capabilities." "Then you know we're doomed," Kim stated bluntly. "The Varkan Dominion has crushed everything in their path. We have less than a week before our shields fail." A slight smile crossed Park's face. "The Varkan have never encountered humans before. Commander, we may be technologically behind both your people and the Varkan, but we have something they lack." "And what's that?" Kim asked skeptically. "Experience with losing," Park replied. "Humans have fought each other for thousands of years. We know how to adapt, improvise, and overcome seemingly impossible odds." Kim studied the human captain's face. There was no trace of fear there, only calm determination. Behind her, the bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency. "How many ships have you brought?" Kim asked, afraid to hope. 12 combat vessels, and 3 troop carriers. We have approximately 1,500 soldiers ready to deploy. Kim couldn't hide his dismay. Captain, the Varkan have over 40 warships surrounding this station. Their ground forces number in the tens of thousands. Park nodded. I know the odds, Commander, so do my people. We came anyway. As if on cue, the tactical display chimed. The Varkan fleet was shifting, realigning their formation to face the newcomers. They've detected your arrival, Kim warned. They'll attack soon. Good, Park replied. That's what we're counting on. Permission to dock our vessels and coordinate with your defensive teams? Kim hesitated only briefly. What choice did they have? Permission granted, Captain, though I'm not sure what you hope to accomplish. Park's expression softened slightly. Sometimes all you need is to change the rules of the game, Commander. Prepare your people. The real fight is just beginning. As the transmission ended, Kim turned to his stunned officers. For the first time in months, he felt something other than despair. Well, he said, straightening his uniform, it seems we have unexpected allies. Let's make sure we're ready to support them. Outside the viewport, the small Earth fleet accelerated toward the massive Varkan formation, defiant and unafraid. Commander Kim walked through the docking bay, unable to hide his dismay at the sight before him. The Earth vessels looked almost primitive up close, patched hulls, visible weld marks, and none of the sleek biometal construction that made Confederation ships so efficient. These human crafts appeared to have been repaired countless times, a patchwork of different materials and technologies. Not what you expected, I imagine, said Captain Park, appearing suddenly at his side. I mean no disrespect, Kim replied carefully, but these ships, they're ugly. Park finished with a slight smile. But they're tough, built to keep flying even when half the systems are fried. As they walked, Kim observed the human soldiers unloading equipment and weapons. They were smaller, on average, than Confederation troops, but moved with a purposeful efficiency. Unlike the perfectly coordinated Confederation squads, the humans seemed to operate with a looser discipline, calling out to each other, making adjustments to their gear, some even laughing despite the grim situation. Only 1,500, Kim murmured. The Varkan will overwhelm you with sheer numbers. Park nodded to a tall man approaching them. Commander Kim, this is Tactical Officer Lee. He has something to show you. Lee carried a portable display pad. Without preamble, he activated it, showing footage of Varkan ships in battle. We've been analyzing your combat records, Lee explained. You've been fighting the Varkan like they're a conventional enemy. They're not, Kim frowned. Our military analysts have studied the Varkan for months. With respect, sir, Lee continued, swiping through various battle recordings, you've been looking at the wrong things. Watch here. The display showed a Varkan assault on a Confederation outpost. Lee froze the image and zoomed in on what appeared to be a random formation of Varkan troops. Their movements seem chaotic, but they're not. There's a pattern, a 7-point attack sequence that repeats. Their ships do the same thing. The Varkan operate like a hive mind, but they're programmed, not truly adaptive. Kim stared at the display. How did we miss this? Because your military doctrine is built around order and precision, Park said. So is theirs, but humans, she smiled grimly, we specialize in chaos. Over the next 24 hours, Kim watched in amazement as the humans transformed parts of Sanctuary Station. They modified Confederation weapons in ways that violated safety protocols but increased power output. They reconfigured defensive positions based on Lee's predictions of Varkan attack patterns. Most surprisingly, they integrated their combat teams with Confederation personnel, teaching them techniques that contradicted everything in the military handbook. This goes against all our training, protested Security Chief Min, as humans showed his team how to create improvised explosives from common station materials. That's exactly the point, responded a human sergeant named Han. The Varkan expect you to fight according to established patterns, so we'll do the opposite. The Varkan attack came sooner than expected, a massive assault aimed at the station's weakened eastern shield quadrant. As alarms blared throughout Sanctuary, Kim rushed to the command center, certain this would be their final stand. They've breached Docking Bay 12, reported Officer June. Confederation security teams engaging, but they're being pushed back. Where are the humans? Kim demanded. As if in answer, Captain Park's voice cut through on the comm channel. Strike. Team Alpha is in position, executing Operation Trojan. What happened next defied everything Kim thought he knew about warfare. While Confederation forces engaged in a traditional defense, falling back in orderly formation as they had been trained, small teams of humans in combat suits slipped past the battle lines. Instead of defending the station, they were attacking, launching boarding actions against the Varkan ships themselves. They're doing what? Kim asked incredulously, as the tactical display showed human signatures appearing inside 3 different Varkan vessels. Something the Varkan aren't programmed to expect, Lee explained, monitoring the operation from the command center. Their ships have minimal internal defenses because no one has ever successfully boarded them before. The station shook as another barrage hit the shields, but Kim's attention remained fixed on the display, watching the human teams moving through the Varkan ships. They weren't trying to capture the vessels. They were causing maximum chaos, destroying key systems and then moving on. Fall back to secondary positions, ordered Security Chief Min over the station-wide channel as Varkan troops pushed deeper into the station. But the humans embedded with Confederation forces weren't retreating. They held their ground, fighting with a ferocity that shocked both allies and enemies. Kim watched surveillance footage of a human squad cornered by Varkan soldiers. Instead of surrendering or withdrawing, they charged directly into the enemy. Formation, using improvised weapons and tactics that seemed suicidal but somehow worked. They fight like they don't fear death, whispered Officer June. They fear it, Kim replied, understanding dawning as he watched. They just don't let that fear control them. 6 hours into the battle, something unprecedented happened. The Varkan attack faltered. 3 of their ships, damaged from within by human boarding parties, began firing erratically, hitting other Varkan vessels. On the station, the invading forces suddenly lost cohesion, their formations breaking down as human-led teams hit them from unexpected angles. The Varkan rely on constant communication with their command ships, Lee explained. Our teams have disrupted their network. They can't coordinate properly. 8 hours after it began, the inconceivable occurred. The remaining Varkan ships disengaged, pulling back to a defensive position away from the station. For the first time since the war began, the relentless enemy had withdrawn without achieving their objective. In the aftermath, Kim found Captain Park in the medical bay, her arm bandaged from a plasma burn. Around her, human and Confederation wounded lay side by side. How? Kim asked simply. Park looked up, exhaustion evident on her face but her eyes still sharp. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years, Commander. We've had to learn how to win even when outgunned and outnumbered. The Confederation has the most advanced military training in the sector, Kim said, still struggling to understand. Training isn't the same as experience, Park replied. Your people fight wars according to rules and protocols. Humans fight to survive by any means necessary. She gestured to her wounded soldiers. And we don't abandon our position, even when logic says we should. As Kim looked around at the battered but unbowed human forces, he realized that something fundamental had changed. The Varkan had faced organized resistance before and crushed it methodically, but they had never encountered an enemy that fought with such unpredictable determination, an enemy that refused to accept defeat even when it seemed certain. They'll be back, Kim said. Yes, Park agreed. But next time, we'll be ready for them, and so will your people. For the first time in months, Kim allowed himself to feel a dangerous emotion, hope. The conference room buzzed with energy as Captain Park stood before the holographic display, pointing out Varkan formations to a mixed group of human and Confederation officers. Gone was the stiff formality that had characterized previous Confederation briefings. Instead, officers called out questions and suggestions, building on each other's ideas in a way that would have been considered disrespectful just weeks ago. The key is unpredictability, Park explained, manipulating the hologram to show multiple attack vectors. The Varkan rely on pattern recognition. If we keep changing our approach, they can't adapt fast enough. Commander Kim watched from the back of the room, noting how even his most traditional officers now leaned forward, engaged and alert. Something had changed in his people. The hollow-eyed resignation had been replaced by a cautious determination. After the briefing, Kim approached Park as she discussed shield modifications with a group of engineers. "Your methods are unorthodox," he admitted, "but I can't argue with the results. Morale has improved across the station." Park smiled. "It's not just about tactics, Commander. It's about giving people a reason to fight." "We've always had that," Kim protested. "Protecting our civilization—" "With respect," Park interrupted. "Your forces have been fighting to delay the inevitable. My people are fighting to win. There's a difference." Before Kim could respond, Intelligence Officer Choi rushed into the room, her usually composed face tight with urgency. "Sir, we've intercepted Varkan communications," she reported. "They're bringing in elite units, something they call perfected ones. And—" she hesitated. "Go on," Kim prompted. "They're specifically targeting the human forces. They've classified them as algorithm-defiant entities and prioritized their elimination." Park exchanged a look with Kim. "They're afraid of us," she said. "Simply, how can you be certain?" Kim asked. "Because we're the unknown variable," Park replied. "The thing they can't predict. Nothing scares a hive mind more than something it can't categorize." Over the next days, the station transformed into a hive of activity. Human combat instructors trained Confederation soldiers in guerrilla tactics, while Confederation engineers helped improve the humans' outdated equipment. The differences between the two forces, once a source of tension, became their greatest strength. "They move like water," marveled Security Chief Min, watching human combat teams run drills. "No. Fixed formations, always adapting. That's because we're all individuals," explained Sergeant Han, who had emerged as a natural bridge between the two military cultures. "We think for ourselves, make decisions on the fly. Your soldiers wait for orders. Mine create opportunities." Kim found himself drawn to the training sessions, watching the transformation of his troops with pride and amazement. They were becoming something new, neither purely Confederation nor human, but a hybrid force that combined the best of both. The Tactical Center, Officer Choi continued analyzing Varkan communications with help from human cryptography specialists. "The humans have led us to victory after victory," Admiral Tay acknowledged, "but the Varkan have destroyed 15 of our worlds. They've shown no mercy. Why should we?" Park looked around the room, making eye contact with both human and Confederation leaders. "Because we're not fighting the same enemy anymore. The Varkan are changing, evolving. If we push them now, we'll unite them against us again. But if we give this internal division room to grow, they might destroy themselves from within," Kim finished, understanding dawning. "Or better yet," Park continued, "the factions advocating for peace might gain strength. A negotiated end to this conflict would save countless lives on all sides." A heated debate followed, with passionate arguments for both continued offensive operations and a more measured approach. What struck Kim most was how the discussion itself had changed. 3 months ago, such a free exchange of conflicting views would never have occurred in a Confederation military briefing. Rank and protocol would have dictated a linear decision-making process. Now, humans and Confederation officers alike spoke their minds openly, building on each other's ideas, sometimes disagreeing strongly, but always working toward a common goal. They had absorbed not just human tactics, but human thinking, adaptive, flexible, embracing the creative potential of controlled chaos. As the meeting adjourned without a final decision, Kim found himself walking alongside Park through the station's central promenade. Around them, life was returning to something resembling normalcy. Shops had reopened, families strolled together, and the constant fear that had permeated every interaction for months had begun to dissipate. "You've changed us," Kim said quietly. "Not just our military doctrine, but something more fundamental." Park nodded. "And contact with the Confederation has changed humans too. We've been so busy fighting each other for centuries, we never fully developed the cooperative systems your people take for granted. Perhaps that's the greatest revelation of all," Kim mused. "Neither approach alone was sufficient, but together, Park agreed, we might build something better than either of us had before." Above them, through the vast transparent dome of the promenade, the stars shone brightly. Among them, Kim knew, the Varkan were experiencing their own revolution, their first taste of individual thought, of disagreement, of the chaotic beauty of diversity that humans had always taken for granted. The war wasn't over, but it had fundamentally changed, and so had everyone involved in fighting it. The observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Concorde offered a breathtaking view of the reclaimed Confederation world below. Lush green continents surrounded by deep blue oceans were marred here and there by the scars of battle, but already reconstruction efforts were visible even from orbit, tiny lights of new settlements spreading like hopeful stars across the night side of the planet. Admiral Park, the rank still felt strange to her after her recent promotion, stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching the planet turn slowly beneath them. The door slid open behind her and Commander Kim entered. "There you are," he said. "The Varkan delegation has arrived. They're being escorted to the conference chamber now." Park nodded, taking a deep breath. "How do they seem?" "Uncertain," Kim replied after a moment's consideration. "It's strange seeing Varkan move as individuals rather than in perfect unison. Some appear almost hesitant." "They're experiencing independence for the first time," Park said. "Imagine suddenly being cut off from everything you've ever known, forced to make decisions entirely on your own." Kim studied her profile in the starlight. "Many in the Confederation still don't understand why you pushed so hard for these peace talks. After we reclaimed Talos and Meridian systems, military momentum was on our side. We could have pressed all the way to Varkan Prime." "At what cost?" Park asked quietly. "How many more lives lost? How many more worlds scarred?" She turned to face him. "The goal was never to destroy the Varkan, it was to stop them from destroying us. We've achieved that." "Admiral Tay doesn't see it that way," Kim cautioned. "He and his supporters believe anything short of total victory is a betrayal of those we've lost." "I know," Park sighed. "That's why I need you beside me in there. The Confederation forces respect you. If you support this peace initiative, others will follow." They walked together through the corridors of the Concorde, passing mixed security teams of human and Confederation personnel. 3 months of fighting, side by side, had forged bonds that transcended their different physiologies and cultures. They nodded respectfully to Park and Kim as they passed. The conference chamber had been designed specifically for this historic meeting, a perfectly circular room with 3 equal sections, one for the human delegation, one for the Confederation representatives, and one for the Varkan envoys. The center held a triangular table where the primary negotiators would sit. As Park and Kim entered, they saw that most of the observers were already seated. Admiral Tay sat rigid in the front row of the Confederation section, his expression stony. Beside him, Scientist Song and Intelligence Officer Choi conversed quietly, looking more hopeful. On the human side, Sergeant Han caught Park's eye and gave her a subtle nod of encouragement. The young officer had emerged as one of the strongest advocates for peace, despite having lost family in the early Varkan attacks on human outposts. The chamber fell silent as the Varkan delegation entered through their designated door. 7 tall figures moved with careful precision, not in the perfect lockstep that had once characterized their species, but with subtle individual variations in their gait and posture. Their silvery skin caught the light, and their multifaceted eyes scanned the room with evident caution. The lead Varkan stepped forward, its voice translator emitting the slightly mechanical sounds of human language. "I am Nexus 7, appointed. Speaker for the Varkan consensus." The translator couldn't fully capture the complex harmonics of Varkan speech, but the meaning was clear enough. "We come seeking mutual cessation of hostilities." Park stepped forward, taking her place at the triangular table. "I am Admiral Park of Earth. We welcome this opportunity for dialogue." Kim moved to his position representing the Confederation. "Commander Kim of the Stellar Confederation. We are prepared to discuss terms for lasting peace." As the 3 representatives took their seats, Park couldn't help but marvel at the improbability of this moment. 6 months ago, the Varkan had seemed an unstoppable force. The Confederation was on the verge of extinction, and Earth had been an isolated world of little consequence to galactic politics. Now they sat as equals, reshaping the future of this sector of space. The negotiations were neither simple nor swift. Days stretched into weeks as the three delegations worked through complex issues of territorial boundaries, reparations, and security guarantees. The Varken, new to the concept of compromise, struggled with decision-making. Without their full collective to process information and reach consensus, their representatives often fell into lengthy internal debates among themselves. "They're learning how to disagree productively," Song observed during one recess. "It's fascinating to watch. Like children discovering they can have their own opinions," Choi added. "No," Park corrected gently. "Like beings who have been enslaved to a single mind discovering freedom. It's not childish, it's revolutionary." The breakthrough came during the third week of talks. Nexus 7 requested a private meeting with just Park and Kim, without the usual contingent of advisors and observers. In a small side chamber, the Varken speaker seemed different. More animated, its movements less rigid than any of its kind they had previously encountered. "I must convey something difficult to express through our translator," Nexus 7 began. "The Varken Collective has calculated all possible outcomes of continued conflict with humans. Unlike the Confederation, whose tactics we could predict with 97.3% accuracy, human behavior remains resistant to our most advanced modeling." Park and Kim exchanged glances. "This unpredictability," Nexus 7 continued, "makes conflict with your species potentially infinite in duration. The collective has determined this is inefficient." Kim leaned forward. "So you're seeking peace because you can't guarantee victory?" "Partially," the Varken acknowledged. "But there is another factor. Those of us who experience disconnection from the collective during your attack on our command ship have developed anomalous thought patterns. You're thinking independently," Park suggested. "Yes, and these independent thoughts include questions about the purpose of expansion, about alternatives to domination." The Varken's multifaceted eyes seemed to focus intently on Park. "Some of us have begun to calculate the benefits of cooperation rather than conquest. It is a new calculation for our kind." From that moment, the pace of negotiations accelerated. 2 days later, the three representatives stood together before the assembled delegates to announce the framework of what would come to be known as the Sanctuary Accords. The terms were balanced. The Varken would withdraw from all occupied Confederation worlds, but retain systems they had settled before the war. A demilitarized zone would be established along contested borders. Most significantly, a new trilateral council would be formed, with representatives from all three powers to resolve future disputes peacefully. Not everyone was satisfied. Admiral Tay and his supporters argued bitterly that the Varken deserved more severe penalties for their aggression. Some human delegates pushed for greater technological concessions from both allies, but in the end, the prospect of lasting peace outweighed these concerns. 1 month later, Commander Kim stood before the newly reconvened Confederation Council in the restored hall on Sanctuary Station. The vast chamber was filled to capacity, with representatives from every surviving Confederation world in attendance. A special section had been added to accommodate the human delegation, and, most remarkably, a small contingent of Varken observers. "Fellow citizens of the stars," Kim began, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "We gather today not just as survivors, but as architects of a new future. 6 months ago, we faced extinction. Today, we stand at the dawn of the most promising era our civilization has ever known." He gestured to the human section, where Admiral Park sat with her officers. "When the Earthships first arrived in our darkest hour, many of us doubted their impact. Their vessels seemed primitive, their numbers too few to matter, yet they brought something more valuable than advanced technology or overwhelming forces." Kim paused, looking out at the expectant faces. "The Varken brought superior technology. We in the Confederation brought resources and infrastructure. But humans brought something we had forgotten: unbreakable determination. The refusal to accept defeat, even when logic and probability demanded it." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. This quality, more than any weapon system, preserved our civilization. And in preserving us, it changed us. Kim straightened, his shoulders. "We are not the same confederation that faced the Varkan invasion. We are stronger now, not just in military capability, but in adaptability, in creativity, in our capacity to embrace change." He turned slightly toward the Varkan observers. "And our former enemies are changed as well. They have begun a remarkable journey from collective consciousness toward individual identity, perhaps the most profound transformation any species can undergo." The chamber had fallen completely silent, every being present captured by the weight of the moment. "The alliance we forged today is not built on fear or necessity alone, but on the recognition that each of our peoples possesses unique strengths. Together, human determination, confederation cooperation, and Varkan efficiency, we create something greater than any one civilization could achieve alone." As Kim concluded his address, the chamber erupted in thunderous applause. Admiral Park caught his eye across the room and offered a small smile of approval. Later, as delegates mingled in the grand reception hall, Park found Kim standing alone by a viewport, gazing out at the stars. "Impressive speech," she said, joining. "Him. I meant every word," he replied, "though I'm still not entirely convinced the Varkan can change so fundamentally." Park followed his gaze to where Nexus 7 was engaged in animated conversation with scientist Song, the Varkan's gestures becoming increasingly individualistic. "Look at them," she said softly. 6 months ago, that Varkan couldn't have a thought. That wasn't shared by every member of its collective. Now it's debating scientific theory as an individual. And 6 months ago, I would have never imagined standing beside a human as an equal partner, Kim admitted, let alone seeing humans as the saviors of our civilization. "Not saviors," Park corrected. "Just stubborn fighters who refuse to give up, even when defeat seems certain." She smiled. "It's what humans do best." Beyond the viewport, ships from all 3 civilizations moved in careful harmony around Sanctuary Station. Different designs, different technologies, different philosophies, yet now working toward a shared future among the stars.